everyone, this is Tamara from shelfaddiction.com and welcome to episode 32. Today I'm talking all about the horror genre. I have some really fun recommendations and suggestions perfect for the month of October as we are leading into Halloween. If you enjoy seasonal reading, then you don't want to miss this list of recommendations. If you'd like to get in on this conversation or give me some feedback and or suggestions, please let me know what you think and tweet at me on Twitter at Shelf Addiction. I reached out for recommendations via voicemails in the last month on this genre, but sadly I got no bites, not a one. That surprised me a little bit, but regardless, never fear. I have a few suggestions myself, and I also have several from bibliophile friends that may very well read more than I do. So I trust their opinion, so I've thrown their titles on the list as well because they look good and they had good reviews. So in general, this list is just going to give you some suggested reading for the horror genre, and some of it may put you in the Halloween mood. None of these are in any particular order, so I'm just going to hit them from just the list that I've accumulated. And like I said, don't worry, they're not in any particular order. I will point out the ones that I have read and reviewed myself. We're going to kick this list off with The Passage by Justin Cronin. This is creepy in the 10th degree. It is definitely a horror title, and it is a vampire title, but don't get it twisted. These vampires are not shimmering or glowing. They're not cute. They're not trying to meet their mates. These are the scary, I'm going to eat you. This is what happens when science goes wrong type of vampires. This is in a post-apocalyptic setting, so the world has all been consumed by vampires and not in the sexy way. I definitely recommend this series, or trilogy for that matter, on audiobook. It is very good. I definitely think that everyone should check this out. It is adult book. So yes, the themes are heavy. Yes, some of the story is heavy. Yes, there is some gore. Yes, there is fighting. But again, we're talking horror. And yes, you know, it's a little unnerving. It's not necessarily scary, but it's dreadful. So yes, definitely, but dreadful in a good way, right? Definitely give this book a try. My next recommendation is Dark Dreams, a collection of horror and suspense by Black writers. It's an anthology, and this features many popular Black mystery and horror writers such as Brandon Macy, Tananarive Due, Zane, L.R. Giles, Christopher Chambers, D.S. Fox, Linda Addison, and more. This is a compilation of short stories that are horror or suspense, and some of these stories are really dark and some are not so much. Some are just plain twisted. This is really perfect for, you know, this time of year. You want to read something a little odd that makes your skin crawl, but not necessarily too scary that you can't go to sleep. These are good stories. There's a mix of ghosts and vampires, I think witches, and you know, there's a whole lot of things that go on that are pretty much fantasy based, but it's very good. And some of the stories actually are not fantasy based, but they're just good old plain horror. So definitely check this out as well. I did not listen to this on audiobook. I read it, so I don't even know if there's an audiobook available. This book is actually pretty old. I think it came out in 2004. If you like the audiobook, go ahead and check for it, but otherwise it's really easy reading. The next book is a recommendation, and this is The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. This is a very different take on a zombie story. It is horror rolled with science fiction, rolled with zombies, rolled with dystopia. So it's all about very special little girl Melanie, and she goes to school, but the whole time she's in school she's strapped to a wheelchair, right? That's very strange. Melanie loves to learn, but her teacher looks at her sad, so obviously Melanie has no idea she's a zombie. Poor girl. Now it also does say that this book is perfect for fans of Stephen King, Justin Cronin, who I just mentioned a little bit ago, and Neil Gaiman. So if you like those authors, you might want to give this title a try. The next book is actually a book that I'm reading right now for one of my book clubs, and that is The Madman's Daughter by Megan Shepherd. Not only does this fall in the horror genre, but people are also labeling it as science fiction, a retelling, historical fiction, and it's all of those things. This is a spin-off story for The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. From what I understand, you do not need to read The Island of Dr. Moreau in order to enjoy The Madman's Daughter. Some have described this as creepy and gory, and some have described this as sexy, which is an interesting combination of things. It takes place in 19th century England, so that is the Victorian era. So I think sometimes that setting can make it even more creepy. So definitely give this one a shot. Let me know if you enjoy it. I'll be sure to let you know what I think when I'm finished with it as well. The next recommendation that I received is Pretty Little Dead Girls by Mercedes M. Yardley. This is fun because it's a pretty short read, under 290 pages, and it's all about a young girl who runs away from home and she befriends a tortured musician, but this musician turns out to be a serial killer. How wild is that? It's been described as dark, a lovely fairy tale with lyrical language and a high body count. Nice. That is definitely horror. Very cool. The reviews for this are pretty good as well. I gotta say, whenever I see a rating of over 4 out of 5 average, that's always a good sign. So I'll definitely be adding this to my TBR list. Hopefully you will as well. Of course, I've got to throw in the king of horror, which is Stephen King. I'm going to recommend The Stand. This is a, I guess, fantasy / horror / post-apocalyptic situation, and it is very scary. This does have some things regarding, religion and good and evil, and I gotta tell you, this is a monster of a book. It comes in at over 1,000 pages in most editions, so this is not a joke. Definitely enjoy it, savor it. Maybe you might choose to read this book over a couple of months, I don't know, or maybe you might be so in love with it you finish it in a day. I'd be curious to see who could read 1,000 pages in a day. If you do, let me know. I want to know what your trick is to get that done. I also wanted to put in a recommendation by Stephen King's son, Joe Hill. They write in the same way where you just wonder, how do you come up with this? It's crazy. But that makes it all the more interesting. And I'm recommending Heart-Shaped Box. And this is where a over-the-hill rock star tells his assistant to buy a ghost via a online auction site. And it's crazy. It comes in a heart-shaped black box that not only contains the suit of the dead, but also his vengeance obsessed spirit. So if you can imagine, I'm sure it is a wild ride. Heart-Shaped Box has been on my TBR list and on my shelf for quite a while, and I really would love to get to that this month. It seems totally appropriate. Last but not least, I really have some oldie but goodies. This is a trilogy, and this is the Scary Stories trilogy by Alvin Schwartz and Stephen Gammell. Stephen Gammell is the illustrator. The first book was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. The second was More Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And the third was Scary Stories 3, More Tales to Chill Your Bones. And I gotta tell you, I remember these from when I was younger. And when I read them, I remember being very creeped out by these books. So I remember the creepy sketches along with the short stories. And on a cool fall night with the leaves rustling around you, sitting around a bonfire or a campfire, and you're telling these scary stories by Alvin Schwartz, eating, I don't know, s'mores or something like that. Just priceless. I can just see myself doing that. So fun. I just feel some nostalgia about them, and I know I really enjoyed them. And if you haven't read these books, where have you been? You got to check them out. I am curious to see if I like them as an adult, but I definitely loved them as a kid, and I just remember being a little freaked out by a couple of his stories. So that is totally appropriate for Halloween. So if any of these books have caught your attention and you'd like to pick up a copy, I do have Amazon links in the show notes. Feel free to just click on them and it'll take you right to the page. You can pick them up on audiobook or Kindle or whatever. Just enjoy some scary books this month. Thanks for listening today, guys, and I'll see you next week. But before you go, please hit that follow button on Spreaker, the only place where you can listen live, or subscribe and listen later on iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, and the Stitcher app. That's it, and thanks for listening. Until next time, happy reading. Bye, guys.